Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the major HIT or HIT-45FB1. This is a router template that is used to prep, could be used for wood doors, but it's really meant for aluminum doors. But it's for a very particular type of flush bolt, which we'll go over in a moment. Let's start with some basic dimensional properties just to show you what it looks like. An overall height looks like it's about 9 7/8. An overall width, about 2 1/4. The backside, you can see that it is machined aluminum, and that the prep in the template itself is about 4 3/8 by about 1 1/16 or so, and that is a specific size. That is meant for a specific purpose. And you'll note that the hardware you're prepping for does not measure that size, and that is for good reason, which we'll talk about. Couple of screws and an Allen wrench that is obviously meant to fixture this to a tool, and we'll discover what that tool is. Also in the package you will get the label, but then installation instructions as well, which we will go over in a moment. Let's talk about where you're going to use this. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. So the HIT-45FB1 is going to be a router template face that is going to be attached to a device that's going to allow you to get this onto the door, onto the workpiece. And again, the size of the prep in the opening is specific for a specific net size that you're going to achieve. And why this is larger than the faceplate of the flush bolt that you're prepping is because you have to take into account the outside diameter of the router guide that's been attached down to the base of the router. You're going to lose space because of that router guide, which means you're going to take the net size of what you want to achieve or end up with, and you're going to add to the overall size the diameter of the router guide to get you this size, which doesn't correlate to anything directly, but it would be this size minus your router guide diameter is going to equal your finished size, which is for the hardware. So this, the 45FB1, is specific for international FB-1200 and Builder's Brass 5024 flush bolts. Now I've seen these, and you probably have as well. A really unusual flush bolt that's very short and looks to be the right width, but it's a little skinnier than normal, average, in aluminum doors. And with a template and with a router and a carbide router bit, you can easily route aluminum, no problem at all with that. Aluminum is quite easy to machine or cut through. There's a lot of chatter. It will be quite loud when you're doing the operation. It'll be louder than the tool itself, whereas usually with a wood door, the tool itself is what's loudest. And then again, this is going to allow you to fixture it down to the template. The HIT-45 is what it is, the clamp fixture. And it just basically allows you a modular system by which you go about attaching different faceplates to your HIT-45 clamp system. So the International FB-1200 and the Builder's Brass 5024, BBW or Builder's Brass Works, I believe, became Trimco, and Trimco is still a company today, but they don't make any small flush bolts that you're going to see used in, quite frankly, mid-20th century aluminum storefront inactive doors is really where you'll see it. International is still around, and we'll look in their catalog and see if we can find an FB-1200. So having said that, let's switch to the screen view. Let's go over all of the supporting information. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Okay, here's the item that we are working on. Let's take a look at some images that we have before we get into the extended description of the item here. That's the packaging. That's what it looks like before it ships to you. There's the label that will come in there. Template for International and Donjo flush bolts. Donjo may have a flush bolt like this. I don't believe they do currently. That engraved line is going to give you a center line. That's really handy. When you attach this to your HIT-45 clamp, you can mark your center line of your prep and just line that up. Top of the template. And just going down the length of the entire item. The underside of the template, your screws and your Allen wrench, and then your installation instructions. So let's take a look at the extended description. Router template used to route the 4 1/4 by 15/16 opening for international FB-1200 and builder's brass 5024 and aluminum doors. Router template guide designed to be used with the HIT-45. Let's take a look at the HIT-45, and there it is. Basically, what happens is you're going to place your HIT-45FB1 right in this spot, and you are going to screw it attach it with the 2 screws that are there. Now, what's interesting is the center line of the template. The center line to the edge of the template. That's at 4 15/16. So once you get that attached to your HIT-45, 4 15/16, you may or may not have enough room to get this clamped to the door. You probably do, but if you didn't, one thing that we would do is literally just attach a block of wood to the door, and then we would clamp that block of wood to the door to give you something to grab onto, is how we do that. Pony clamps are great for that purpose, which are just basically clamps that utilize typical store-bought black steel pipe, is all it is. So they're good for that kind of stuff because you can buy pipe and whatever length you need, and all of a sudden you've got a clamp that can do 12-inch, and it also can do 90-inch, whatever you might need. So one way to get around that, should it be too short. But this is the HIT-45. The point being is that it's modular. Onto this you can slap lots of different templates. We'll look at the catalog in a moment. Okay, drill bushings in the template are located at 5 1/4 center to center to locate the mounting screws for perfect alignment. What that means is through here and here is the location for the holes for the mounting component, so that you can be sure that you're lining it up exactly where you need it to be, should that be necessary. I would think that it's really not, because you'll determine your center line from the top of the door to the center of the faceplate, then use that engraved line that's there. Requires the use of a router equipped with a 3/8 outside diameter template guide and a 1/4 inch down shear router bit. Super important on the 3/8. It's absolutely important. Okay, so half of 3/8 is 3/16. And we're going to talk about that dimension in a moment. 3/8 diameter outside template guide and a 1/4 inch down shear. So that what that means is the spiral on a router bit the spirals can go, say, clockwise or counterclockwise. One is a down shear and the other is an up shear. Up shear would be appropriate when you want to evacuate work out of the piece, but that down shear is going to be meant to work in the opposite sort of effect. And sold as each. When you buy one, we'll ship you one. Let's take a look at the installation instructions. Now this is going to talk about cover page. Always big fonts, lots of images, and they're going to tell you basically what to use. Here's the router bit that they're suggesting that you use. Well, let's back up just ever so slightly. So the page, the installation instructions, there's 7 pages because there's pictures in big fonts, which is always really great. Always wear protective gear, ears, eyes, lungs. Put a mask on. You don't want to breathe in any particulate of aluminum. That would be my suggestion. So your router needs to be equipped with a 3/8 diameter template guide mounted in its base. It's going to look like this. Actually, I have a major 3/8 router guide loaded here. 3/8 OD. That means the OD of this is 3/8. The bit that comes through here is 1/4 inch diameter. So the margin between the edge of the bit and the inside wall of the guide is quite small. You know, quite small. It's, you know, 45 thousandths. It's something very small is the bottom line. This would be the unit that you attach to the bottom of your Porter cable, DeWalt, newer Craftsman routers. However, Major does have a 3/8 here for this Craftsman router as well, if you have an older Craftsman router. Okay, so that's the deal with that. But now let's talk about the math of what I was attempting to discuss earlier. Basically, you've got the bit, that's a 1/4 inch. Then you've got the guide that's going to sit like that. This is a 1/4 inch. Half of that is 1/8. This is 3/8. Half of that is 3/16. So you're going to find that the prep that you want to make in the door is going to be smaller by the component of what the diameter of the guide is, but also the bit diameter as well. So that's the science, that's the explanation as to why you would have a larger prep in your fixture compared to what you're using. But the bit diameter, the router guide outside diameter, and the prep in the template all correlate to each other. They all must be compatible with what the net final size you want to achieve is. Okay. They say that and in our example, we require a 15/16 net finished width. Well, the inside dimension of the template is 1 1/16. Yeah, well, I think it's 1 1/16. So that's an 1/8 of an inch difference. Well, where that's coming up from is the difference between half of the guide and half of the bit is an 1/8 of an inch times 2, because you've got 2 ends to your prep. This end and this end. You're going to lose an 1/8 of an inch here and an 1/8 of an inch here. So you've got to allow for that. Oh, pardon me, a 1/16 on either end, not an 1/8. So that's where that math is coming in. As you change the prep that's in the fixture, and you treat the 3/8 and the router bit diameter, the 3/8 and the 1/4 inch variables, just as what they are, variables, you realize that you've got to have a way to know what size is in your fixture. So, regardless of figuring out the math behind how you determine it, just follow the instructions. 3/8 OD, 1/4 inch diameter bit. By the time you're seeing this video, there will be a link from here and here to the appropriate items to be looking at. So you're all set up. Determine the location of the flush bolt being installed. Make sure you mark the center of the opening and have the bolt in the retracted position so you have enough throw when it is installed. I think what they're saying is if you mark the location when you are in the thrown position, you're going to be too low, is what they're saying. It's just a way to keep you from making an honest mistake. Mark the center line. So basically what they've done here, it's retracted. They probably have the bolt quite flush to the top of the door, and they literally laid the hardware on the edge of the door and then with a pencil mark the center line. Then you line up that pencil mark with the center line of your tool, just like it says. With a unibit, drill a 3/8 or larger starting hole for the router bit. So what they're saying is you need to drill a hole into the edge so that you can take your router and insert it down into the workpiece, because you won't be able to drill a hole into the workpiece with your router. They are saying to use a cutting thread, a cutting lubricant. They recommend the area to be routed with lubricated, to be lubricated with cutting lube. Major uses Tapmatic Edge Cream, made by LPS. That's a product line that we distribute. You can find this product at industrial hardware stores or Architectural Builder Supply. You've got the hole, you've got the lube applied. Now you're going to place your router bit in the starting hole, and with firm control of the router. And that's why when I do this work, I like the smallest horsepower router that I can get my hands on. These 1 3/4, 2.5, they're too big for this work. Give me the smallest, like the old Porter Cable 100 router was perfect for this. Not a lot of horsepower, easy to handle when you turned it on. Now, place the router bit in the hole. Your base is flat on the template. Turn your router on in a clockwise direction, because that's based on the down spiral of the bit that you've been instructed to use. You'll proceed in that fashion, clockwise. Do not back up in the cut if you think you missed an area. Don't do it, because it's going to force you to probably push the tool out of the work. Make sure the base of the router is always held flat on the routing template. When completed with the cut, turn the router off and wait for it to come to a complete stop. Always do that. If you nick the edge of your template because the router bit's still turning, you've destroyed the template. Probably in the bit as well. If you needed to cycle through one more time, do so, but you don't need more than 2 paths through that. Now, with the clamp still attached to the door, you're going to drill your mounting holes through these pilot that are here. That's what they're there for. Those aren't, let me show you the image. Those are inserted bushings. Into there is where you'll drill for your mounting tabs of your flush bolt. Make any final cleaning, finishing touches you need to the preparation that you've done. Clean up any lubricant chips that are there. They want you to drill, and then you'll have drilled, but now slightly countersink the screws, because you'll be using a mounting guide, a mounting tab set, which we sell those as well. I'll show you those. Actually, let me just show them to you now. I always think of Adams Rite for these. Adams Rite is going to have lots of mistakes. They're going to have them for flat or radius styles and for beveled styles. So I think what that door they were showing there was for a radius style. So this would be the mounting tab that you would use. Sure, the offset may not be absolutely correct for your application, and you might need to alter that, but this is the idea of what's being used, and countersinking it for those holes that are there. Mark the location for your guide bracket. The flush bolt itself will come with the guide bracket. And what they're doing now is literally drilling the door so that you can get the guide bracket installed. You can use the factory supplied plastic guide, which is likely what those flush bolts come with. Or go with a steel bracket, which are these 2 part numbers from Major. Those plastic brackets break. If you don't want to get called back because someone pushed on the door and cracked the plastic guide, immediately install this. I would suggest doing it as standard. And plus the bolt head is probably plastic on that flush bolt as well. And we can sell you a metal bolt head right here. Standard bolt head from a Rockwood flush bolt. This is it. You'll have your guide attached. That's your little flush bolt. Now that you've seen the flush bolt, you've probably seen that before. Flush bolt goes on, your guide will go on, and you're in good shape. Now this I generally see on the face of the door, not in the edge. I wouldn't see it here. I'm not sure why they drilled it, prepped it here. I would think that's a mistake, that it would be on the face of the door, which is why those guides come with screws that are in 2 different available finishes, because you'll have aluminum and you'll have dark bronze one per pack with mounting screws. Yeah, I don't know if they come with 2 different color finish machine screws. I believe they do. And that finishes off the installation review from the installation instructions. Now, let's take a look at the link below this video here to the manufacturer's page.
If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it.
Okay, that link to the manufacturer's page, when you click on that, you will be able to review not only all of the major products we sell by means of this horizontal navigation as seen here, but also a link to the manufacturer's website as seen here, as well as a link to the full product catalog. I would absolutely suggest diving into this. Maybe start with a search for the HIT-45. There's going to be lots of search results for that. So we'll need to kind of get into the catalog. And you'll find on page 72 that HIT-45 clamp system. Now you can see exactly the power of what you can do. With the HIT-45, you can do lots of different things. You can do mortise pockets. You can do function holes. You can obviously do flush bolts. You can do electric strikes. You can do lots of stuff with this. They make complete kits depending on the type of doors and frames that you primarily service. And all of these modular plates that can be attached to the HIT-45. So if it starts with a HIT-45, it's an available plate for that platform. Now, it's not the only platform by which you can achieve doing function holes and whatnot from Major, and in fact there's usually more than one way to get to a finished result. So if you're not exactly sure of how to get to where you need to get to, reach out to us if it's not clear in the catalog, and if we can't figure it out, we know the good folks at Major will be more than happy to help us figure it out. Let's wrap up this video on camera, but before we do, this catalog, the first half of it or so is full of security hardware. So if you're an integrator, if you're a locksmith out there taking care of your client's security needs, you're going to want to bookmark this catalog. Absolutely. After taking a scroll through it, because if you're not familiar with Major, doors may have been open for you just knowing about the products that they have. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Now, why would you spend the kind of money it takes to buy this material? It's not very sophisticated in terms of what it is. When you look at it, you say, ah, well, that's pretty easy. Well, the difference between looking at it and saying, ah, that's pretty easy, and actually coming up with it in the first place, that's really where the secret and magic is when it comes to the folks over at Major. The gentleman that's there is a self-professed tool nerd. I believe he has an engineering background, and he has spent years in the field. So the confluence of those 3 facts put him in a very unique, powerful position to create tools to help you get solved the problems that you're trying to solve for your client base. Now, if he could only solve a way to help me get this bag back on here. There we go. Okay, so what that means is their tool line is really full of solutions that you can leverage to get to where you need to be. The question is why would you invest in it? Well, if you're going to do a one-off situation for a client, you might say, I'm not going to spend the money, I'm doing it once, and I'll never do it again. I'll do it by hand. You could drill a hole in the 4 corners of that flush bolt and jigsaw cut all of it, the whole 9 yards. You could do that. The opposite end of the spectrum is I've had clients call me and say, I'm doing one job, send me all the tools, and when I'm done, I know I'll never use them again, but I need the job to be correct when I'm doing it. Awesome. Then I've also got customers that say, I have a need to do this about once a year, so I'm going to invest in the tools to do it. An example of that was a client who had maybe just 6 glass and aluminum doors with wide stiles, and they were installing Schlage L-Series mortise locks, L9000 series mortise locks on there. And I sold him everything he needed, the clamp system, the edge prep to do the pocket in the edge, the plates for the function holes, and we could get there from 2 different paths with Major in terms of tools. but he was able to justify it. Extremely expensive doors, extremely expensive locks, extremely expensive people to hire to do the work, and it had to be right the first time. Custom finish on these aluminum, well, not custom, but very long lead time anodized aluminum doors and frames, and it just needed to be perfect. We also sold him what he needed to get the strike prepped in the frame as well, and it went swimmingly. The point of the matter is he now has tools that are, I would imagine, are now paid for, that will last for years, if not decades. It's investment grade material. And so depending on where you come, what approach you're taking to the idea of buying investment grade tools, Major can help you get there, should you choose to make that type of investment. And they have lots of solutions, and most everything in their catalog is still available. A couple of things I know are discontinued that are still in there. So if you're looking for a solution, it's not obvious, reach out to us and we'll be happy to make sure that you've got the path of least resistance to get there. Any questions on the HIT-45FB1 or any other Major product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.
Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.